Welcome to the Thrive Today podcast. I'm Natalie Born, the media host for Thrive Today and the founder of Innovation Meets Leadership. We are a platform for women who lead and believe. And I am so excited for our conversation today. We have Tricia Daniels joining us, and we are going to talk about her article that was in one of our Thrive Today journals on how to respond with joy. It's a strategy for facing financial storms. And I can tell you right now is a really beautiful time to have this conversation. Tricia is not only a speaker, she's an author, and she's a wealth advocate who helps women and leaders overcome financial anxiety and rebuild confidence after life's unexpected shifts. She's going to draw from her own story of loss and resilience, and she empowers others to break free from, I like this word, money shame. I don't know what it is, but we're going to talk about it. Welcome to the podcast, Tricia.
Thank you so much for having me. I love being here.
Well, with so much to unpack with your article, and there's so many other things I want to talk to you about outside your article, but let's start with this idea of financial resilience or spiritual resilience when it comes to financial planning. This is what you do for a living. I would love to hear a little bit about how you help people think about financial stewardship, faith. How does all of that go together with money?
Oh, because most people think it doesn't go anywhere together. They think faith. I mean, that's how I was raised. Most of us were raised with, your faith over here, your money's over here. The only thing that brought them together was the tithe. When the tithe plate would be passed in church, that was the only time anybody would ever talk about it. And so I was floored when I found out the Bible had 2,350 plus verses on on money in the Bible. I was like, wait, excuse me? And I have been fascinated and in research and studying that ever since. Because while I'm a third generation financial expert, my dad was a financial planner, my grandfather's a financial planner. I'm an MBA. I've had almost 3 decades in public accounting. So yes, I can do your taxes, but please don't ask me to. But I've been in corporate finance. And so I love auditing and numbers, but I've also been a woman who started over after divorce. I've
Mhm.
also been a woman who started after job loss. And now I'm also a caregiver to a disabled husband.
Wow.
So, resilience, financial resilience is something I hold super close because that word money shame, especially as a third generation financial expert, when all of a sudden your own finances get wiped clean, thrown out, because starting over after a divorce or a job layoff or caregiving, so many of us know that takes a huge strain on your finances and no one wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
That shame overwhelms you of letting anybody know that you're struggling and letting anybody know that you're anxious.
Hmm.
And so that becomes a really hard conversation. That's why I feel I'm just so grateful. It's been because of having family that talked about money. I had the tools to really rebuild every single time life kind of threw me that curveball, but also speaking it out loud has become another thing. Sharing it with other women, it's taken me sharing a story just a little bit, another woman go, "Oh, that was me too. Thank you." Then they felt seen, and another woman said, "Thank you." Another woman gave me a hug. That I realized this conversation is something we need to have more and more, but especially on that foundation of faith, because again, it takes faith to get you through those really hard times.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear you talk about how most people don't talk about money. And you're right, there is an illiteracy that we have when it comes to money because that's not necessarily, especially in some cultures, something that's passed down generation to generation. So a lot of times when you do get into that challenge, that tough spot, call it a divorce, call it job loss, call
Mhm.
it even what you talked about, helping your husband through a disability. Oftentimes we don't know where to turn because we're
Right.
not used to people talking about money. So we don't know even how to get the conversation started. And even worse, we don't know what to ask.
No, you have no idea what to ask. Yeah, who to reach out to, who's safe, who's not going to judge you.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times people aren't judging us, but in our minds, we think people are judging us. Because especially when you get on social media and you see all these things that other people are doing and going and places, and you're looking at their highlight reels, yet you are over here struggling
Yeah.
through a divorce or through disability or the debt collectors calling or lights about to be turned off or foreclosure or repossession. All these things are overwhelming you.
Mhm.
But having a trusted person to reach out, that's why I feel like, especially women of faith, being a little bit louder and saying, "Hey, I've been through this, and here's how I can help you through it. Here's
Yeah.
another trusted voice. Here are places you and resources, like Thrive Today, being able to
Mhm.
lean out, and go, hey, I'm struggling with, or listening just to a voice and knowing you could reach out to them and just feel empowered through a podcast like this, through a magazine, through something showing other women that they can do it too. But here's a place to start, and here's ways to have conversations even before life does change."
Yeah. I like in your article, you talk about this tree planted by the water.
Mhm.
And then you talk about the root systems. And I just wonder, how do you cultivate that root system so that if a financial storm hits, you can stay grounded? And I'd even wonder, like, what are the top 3 to 5 things we as women, should be thinking about? Because I can tell you that we're in a season where still dealing with inflation. I don't know if our government opened back up or not yet, but
I have no idea.
my daughter told me that they were about to vote on it, but I'm like, she's, currently studying all this government politics stuff.
Mm.
But there's so much going on right now that it does feel the foundation feels very shaky for most people. What are some just practicals that we should be focused on to ensure our system stays deep, even if there's a financial crisis?
I love this. I actually was just talking to my husband about this morning, especially through like this government shutdown. When all of a sudden, the systems that we lean on, we think should always be there for us, disappears.
Yeah.
It makes us shift our focus. What did God say? What did
Mm,
he say that we're supposed to lean into? What did he say? Because that should be our support system, not everything else we were always taught to lean on. Because
wow.
so many of us were taught to lean on the government or
Mhm,
lean on a spouse or
mhm.
lean on something else, that we're letting our money kind of lead the way instead of supporting us. So I think, like you said, the root system, I love going back into Jeremiah, where he talks about having a tree by the stream and the roots are
Mhm.
so deep that you may be bent back and forth, but you don't break,
Yeah.
and you're always going to grow back. So for me, I take it back. I call it a care system.
Okay.
Really, in my caregiving season for my disabled husband, when all the fires hit California, when the floods hit North Carolina,
Yeah.
people had all of a sudden care for their families. Basically, their trees were, bent back and forth,
Yep.
but being next to a stream, you be able to tap into when all of a sudden those resources disappear. So first, I like to start with, like an acronym. I know we all love a good acronym, but care. What is your C? Where is your cash? Knowing if life suddenly changed, if the government shut down, there was a divorce, knowing where is my cash? Where's something that I can access really, really quickly, and
Mhm.
having systems set up of something I could grab in a second. I could get my family to a hotel. I could get my family down the street. I could pay a deductible at the hospital. Where's my cash? Just knowing at all times, what's my family going to, if the government pay is not going to come in, if a paycheck I get laid off is not coming in,
Yeah.
do I know what I can do cash wise for a month, 3 months to 6 months? It's just kind of knowing and bringing your whole family into this conversation, I think is super important. So, kind of like cash communication, you can add another C in there,
Mhm.
bring that communication.
How much
Eh,
cash should we you said 3 to 6 months. How much cash should somebody be thinking about?
So, if they've been looking at their numbers, knowing that you could pay your living expenses. So, if you had a month's worth of expenses, whether it's for living, owing, giving, and growing.
Mm,
So if I always think of money, I like to think in shapes. My dad always taught me about money in shapes. And my oldest son's autistic. And so that's how we
mhm,
used to teach and talk, was everything's in shapes. And so if you think of your money like a circle, this is how much money I've got coming in every single month. And part of it goes to living, part of it goes to owing, part of it
mhm,
goes to giving, part of it's growing. That circle, how many of those circles am I going to need, like for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months? And just being
mhm.
able to visualize, I know I could take care of my family's living expenses. So I know a lot of people just talk about an emergency fund.
Yeah.
I want you to talk about, what's your plan for abundance? What's your plan to be able to make sure your family is cared for? What's your plan? So just think of cash.
Mhm.
If you want to put a number to it, how could you care for your family for a week, for a month, for
Yeah.
3 months, for 6 months, and just kind of start writing it down. What would your circle look like? What would
Mhm.
your numbers need to be to make sure your mortgage got paid? Food, clothing, shelter, things like that. So it's very variable for everybody, but just draw it out, make it a shape, draw it as a tree if you want to. Just making sure your roots are, where are we planted, making sure our house is taken care of. Make it as a visual picture that means something to you, that means something to your kids, and draw it out. It just, I feel like when you see it,
Mhm.
it makes it much more real, because a lot of our financial like stewardship, it is about surrender
Mm.
instead of spreadsheets.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that's what we need to really say. So the C is for cash. A, accessibility.
Mhm.
Do you know how to access your cash? Whether it be on your phone, is it hard cash?
Mhm.
Sometimes when things in life change, do you have a way to get your family a hotel if all the financial systems went down?
Yeah.
Or do you have, and just think about that. Does your kids or a spouse, for me, I do have a disabled husband. I have a spinal injury. One
Mm.
month after our wedding, we blended a family of 6 boys.
Wow.
And 1 month after the wedding, he injured his spine, lost his job. And then I went from a newlywed to a caregiver.
Wow.
Life changes really, really fast. And are we ready? And that's where I
Wow.
felt more the urgency for me. Okay, God, you've taught me how to rebuild from financial ruins
Mhm.
after divorce, after job layoff, and now here. But this time I get to take my 6 boys along on the journey with us to
Mhm.
teach them how for their families someday and their kids, and be able to rebuild when life throws something your way. So for accessible, how could you gain access to cash for a hotel, for to be able to take care of them? And then are those resources? Where are the resources coming from? Are they coming from a high yield savings account? That's where kind of more the financial planning gets in there. Where
Mhm.
are the resources, but also not just monetary resources? The non monetary resources is something we forget about. When life shifts and our bank account is zero, we've got community. We've
Yeah.
got so many other resources sometimes we don't see because we're so blinded by money.
It's good.
There's so many, I can't tell you in this caregiving season how many other resources that now I've been able to open up and view. People I've been connected with, the network of people from within my state, within the country, around the
Mhm.
world, I've been connected with. I would have never have seen if I would have relied on just money. That now I've leaned into these other resources. It's just
Wow.
been mind blowing.
Wow.
And then, so that's C and an A and an R. And then the E is kind of efficiency. Do you have a plan to execute when all of a sudden there's an emergency? Your mind is not thinking clear. Do you already have a plan in place of like, hey, to your kids, to your spouse, your parents, if something happens, here's the one, two, three, how we're going to get ourselves to safety. We are going
Mhm.
to take care of each other for the next 3 to 6 months. If something happens to me and I'm not able to communicate to you, you already know
Mhm.
how to get the cash. You know where it's successful at. You know the resources to reach out to so you can execute it.
Yeah.
So that's more that care plan, and just having those conversations, being able to care for ourselves and our family when life suddenly changes.
This is so powerful, and these are conversations that most family members either don't know how to have, sometimes don't want to have,
No.
and so we just don't have them, and I've seen it over and over again where families get put in these really awkward situations if they lose someone because they haven't had these conversations. So I think it's really really powerful to think about, man, we should get our family together, create a care plan. We focus on, all right, let me make sure I cash, accessibility, resources, and efficiency. I love that
Mhm.
because that's kind of your, how when you're getting ready to go to the delivery room and have a baby, like you have your go bag. It's
Mhm.
like your go bag for your finances. It's like the thing that you must know in order to be successful. So very
Oh,
powerful.
absolutely. Especially too, I've gone and spoken in so many different rooms, and at the end, the women will come up and say, "My family, we weren't supposed to talk about money.
Yeah.
My parents said that's none of your business." Or I watched my family stressed out about it, or
Mhm.
you don't need to know that.
Yeah.
You're too young. And so then all of a sudden they become an adult and they don't know how to have the conversations about it,
Mhm.
or they feel unworthy. They don't feel smart enough. just based off of some of their early money memories, with their families.
Yeah.
And so there's some financial, I would say trauma, but
Mhm.
there's some financial pieces. That's where for me, like my sons, being able to have more conversations. So if you have sons and daughters, really including them in conversations, knowing historically in most families, and especially across different cultures, it's nothing that people just they don't talk about it. But
Yeah.
we can change that narrative now.
Yeah. Before we joined, we were talking about the fact that women have a really interesting opportunity right now in kind of
Mhm.
everything that's happening in the landscape and what's going on and there's something that you said, there's a couple things you said before we hit record that I want to just kind of bring up, but one of those is you were talking about a concept that God had given you about, I think you said finishing the unfinished. And I'd love to talk about that a little bit because I feel like in this season, so much of what women may be looking to do in order to get their money in a better position may be tied to dreams, visions, ideas that God's given them. But oftentimes and I have the biggest t-shirt on this, but we will tell God all the reasons why we can't do it.
Mhm.
And then we kind of take that idea that he's really truly given us and we throw it on the back burner and we're like, that's really cute and great. Don't know how I'm going to get it done, so I'm not going to do it. And it's really, let's call it what it is. It's disobedience.
Oh,
It's just, if
absolutely.
we're just going to call it what it is. But he has so much more for us in this season. And I'd love to just talk about your idea that like of how God kind of spoke that to you finishing the unfinished.
That was a big thing for me because I was in my little quiet room early in the morning, and I have a little notebook beside the chair. And so God wants write down, finish the unfinished. I'm like, what? Okay. And then I was starting to be disobedient. And it was like, no, write this down, finish the unfinished. Because I did know God had given me a book that I was supposed to write back in 2022 that we have not finished. And there's some studying. I'm studying to be a certified kingdom advisor, certified financial planners, all these things that I have not finished, especially during the caregiving season that I've put on the back burner to, oh, I've got to care for the family. I've got to take care of this. I've got to
Mhm.
make this money now instead of telling me what, I'm supposed to finish. So he said, write it down, wrote it down. Then I randomly opened my Bible and it landed on Timothy, where Paul was telling Timothy, I need you to stay behind to finish what was unfinished.
Mhm.
And my mind was just blown. I was like, God, thank you. That's why I needed to write it down before I even opened my Bible. And it was such a thing for me of, I need you to finish that book. I need
Mhm.
you to finish the downloads. When you go through this notebook of everything you've written down over the last 2 or 3 years, we all have that notebook where we've written down or notes in our phone. God's given us a message repeatedly over and over again, yet we're chasing the next dollar.
Yeah.
Yet, no, I've got to do this first. Yet, I got to do that first. And he's like, I need you to finish this because that's what's going to change your life and
Mhm.
change your family life and break these generational curses. This is what I need. Other daughters are waiting for you to finish this. Please, I need you to finish the unfinished.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's big and that hits home for so many women that I talk to who they do have that story of 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, sometimes 10 years ago.
Mhm.
God gave me this idea. He gave me this business idea. He gave me this thing to start, and they just don't start. And so much of our obedience is not in having it all figured out. Sometimes it's just in getting started, just in putting one foot in front of the other and saying yes to what is right in front of you right there. And as a friend of mine would say, Jaquel, she always says, what do you have in your hand? Start with that. Like what's in your hand today? That's what you need to start with. So often we focus on what we don't have, not what is already there.
Yes, that's where it goes back to the widow with the oil. What do you have in your house? And I feel like for me during this caregiving season, when all of a sudden you're go from a family of three to a family of eight,
Yes.
and so my own income was stretched completely, and everything drained. But God showed me, what do you have in your house? What are all these things? And what are the jars you can borrow from other people? What are these non monetary resources you can borrow to help pour your oil in and increase your capacity and change lives? And it's been amazing of seeing all again, the non monetary resources all around us.
Mhm.
to be able to tap into. And again, what do you have right here? We've got our voices, we've
Yeah.
got the downloads He's already given us, He's already given the words, He's already given us the life experiences that we all have lived, so that we've gone through these hard seasons so that we can use that mess for His message,
Yeah.
right? Use all these ruins, what we thought were ruins, that were about to be rebuilt, in just a miracle, a miraculous way to send a message.
Yeah. As you think about kind of the call that God has on women in this season, what are some things that bubble to the surface for you? Like, what are some things that are on your heart for women in this next season?
Next season's so big. We were talking about the wealth transfer. There's about to be an enormous wealth transfer to women. Basically, what it is, if you research just a little bit, is basically there is generations that are retiring, generations
Mhm.
that are passing, and so their wealth, their portfolios, their lands, are
Mhm.
about to be transferred. But mainly, 70% of that's going to go to women. But some of us are not prepared. We were
Mhm.
always taught our spouse will handle that, or you're not supposed to know about that, or I don't feel equipped to know that, or I don't even know how to ask. Like we
Yeah.
talked about earlier, there is such an amazing shift about to happen where women will be in control of all these assets, but we're not prepared. So I feel like that message is, let's finish the unfinished. Let's get prepared. Let's get our books, our voices, and so many of our plans, our care plans in place. So when that money comes in, we're ready for it. It's just like when they
Mhm.
talk about the lottery winners, all of a sudden when they win money, they lose it within 5 years
Yeah.
because they don't have a plan in place. So
Yeah.
if God gave you $100,000 check or $1 million check tomorrow, what would you do with it? Knowing I already have a plan in place. God, I'm ready. That
Mhm.
download you gave me, I've already got it written down. I've got my notebook ready. You gave me $1 million. This is exactly, I know exactly where it's going to go.
Yeah. Well, that's a powerful exercise of faith to really think about, again, I know this to be 100% true. There is nobody walking around on this earth that doesn't have a dream in their heart that's bigger than what they personally can fulfill on their own. It requires that partnership and that connection with God. Unfortunately, most of us, one, we don't ever write the dream down and we
No.
don't ever start to take the steps that we need to get towards that dream. But then, in addition to that, we don't have a plan. Like you said, if I was just talking to someone and he was saying, all the time people ask me, what do you need? And he's like, I never have a great answer. He's like, I never have a good answer for that. And it's like, what if you had an answer for that? What if you
Mhm.
had an answer for somebody saying, well, what do you need to do that dream you have? Being able to speak into that immediately may be the difference between you getting that funding and not getting that funding. So I think there's so much here around how we think about wealth, how we think about ourselves. It's a tool, right?
Right.
Money is neutral. It's not good, it's not bad. It's a tool.
It is.
And
I always
so
call it it is a resource from the source.
yeah,
I mean,
it's good. I like that.
it is just something for us to use to fulfill His plans.
Yeah.
You know,
I love that. I love that. What final thoughts would you have for our listeners today as they think about kind of their own story and maybe their own kind of financial situation that they're currently in?
I want to bring it back to with the article that I wrote is responding with joy,
Hmm.
knowing the joy is your strength during the hardest seasons. And again, as we mentioned, I've gone through them, still living with them. My husband will have surgery in the next 2 days, have his fourth surgery. And
Wow.
so I know that joy is your strength. So no matter what you are going through, if your bank account is wiped out negative, or you're sitting there with a big inheritance that I don't know what to do, lean into God because He's given you a tool, whether it's monetary or non monetary. Joy is one of our greatest tools. If we sit still enough and just listen, that's where your strength's going to come from. That's where your
Mhm.
resilience is going to come from. That's where you know that you're going to take this to this next plan that God has in place and from a place of peace and not panic.
So good. Trisha, where can people find and follow you?
Oh, I love to you come follow me at www.tricia, that's TRICIA, Daniel, DANIEL.com. over and join me. I've got several little programs to use, or just challenge yourself, just to kind of do a 4-day reset to calm your financial anxiety, but leaning on God's word.
Mhm. I love it. Thank you so much for your time today. This was so much fun, and you make financial conversation a fun thing,
Thank
which I
you.
appreciate.
Full joy.
That's awesome. Ladies, let me ask you a question. Have you taken the chance to get into community? Head over to thrivetoday.com to learn more about our community. You'll have like minded women all headed in the same direction, building what God's called them to build over at thrivetoday.com. So head over there, get coaching, monthly resources, and so many things at your fingertips to help you grow. All right, ladies, we will see you next time. Don't forget to thrive.